Hi, Professor Smart. I am submitting this as my extra credit assignment. I will be analyzing Chapter 6, Chapter 7, Chapter 8, and Chapter 9. For Chapter 6, I'm analyzing the policy cycle. In terms of creating policy to handle the COVID-19 pandemic during its initial stage, this item would have made its way to the top of my agenda list way earlier than it actually happened during the current administration, and I would have listened to the experts to set realistic objectives and come up with a policy that matched the gravity of the situation. Instead of the approach that the current administration took, which was to downplay the topic, even as it was widely discussed in the media for months before any action was taken. The president disregarded medical expert opinion from the CDC and the World Health Organization that warned of the gravity of the condition. And once the policy did make it to the agenda, the president did not set realistic objectives or discern and analyze the policy well to choose the best course of actions. He was more concerned on persuading people to think that the crisis would not gravely affect the country to avoid any negative impacts on the economy. In this case, the opportunity cost of offsetting the stock market was higher to him than saving people's lives. When the cases of infected people in the U.S. began to dramatically increase, and we started to see more deaths, that is when the president finally chose to reevaluate his approach and reconsider a different policy that matched the real essence of the crisis. And this often happens in the policy cycle, where if governments are where leaders are where leaders have to rethink their approach. But in this case, it took him way longer than it should have. For Chapter 7, in terms of leadership, the president, as the elected chief executive, has the responsibility to lead the country. As discussed in this chapter, leadership in the public sector is a unique skill that one cannot assume that a person has achieved because of their success in business or another private role um, or another private role that can readily transfer his or her philosophy and technique into government. That's exactly what is written on the textbook. So this could not apply any better to the U.S. current situation, in which people actually voted for the current president because they thought that he would be great because of his business background. But in his way of handling the pandemic, we see how he's approaching the crisis as a business, and he is more concerned about the economy rather than saving people's lives. So he's just like balancing them both as if they were equal. And a true public leader would have always put people's lives first, because he would understand that his role is that of working for the people and not the other way around. For Chapter 8, in forecasting, the president did not do a good job in forecasting the outcomes that the virus would have in the US. As stated in the chapter, forecasting requires the ability to stop developments before they become trends, to see patterns before they fully emerge, and to grasp the relevant features of social currents that are likely to shape the direction of future events. So that what that means is that he he had data available from the effects that the virus was having on other countries. The CDC warned and issued an alert way before he actually took any action on this matter, and he didn't consider any of this. He was more concerned about going on as if nothing had happened, instead of actually sitting down and thinking about how this would impact the country and the people living in it. Um, and then for Chapter 9, fiscal choices in turbulent times. Um, in that regard, the current state of the economy, uh, okay, the current state of the economy generated by the pandemic is one that has never been seen before. The country is at an economic standstill where revenue is not being generated through individual income, which is the main area that the federal government gets its money from. At the same time, State governments and people in general are demanding monetary help from the federal government to supplement their lack of daily income. The stimulus package that was recently passed by Congress is much needed, but will definitely leave its marks in the deficit that the economy was already experiencing. As the chapter discusses, during these turbulent times, the government will be expected to do more with less, and they have to really think about what is really needed and what areas and where to really spend the money. In this case, I believe that the government, both sectors of the government, the executive and the legislative, are putting the money where it should be going. So the stimulus package is meant to help not just regular individuals keep some money in their pockets, but they also have to keep in mind the businesses that would otherwise close if they're not helped, and that would hurt the economy even more in the future. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.